Good afternoon, YouTube. My name is Rob Pollard. I'm here to talk to you about, large maps on Ancient Armies. Now, on my last post where I was showing off the new intelligence features that are being added to Ancient Armies, you might have noticed that the demo was on a pretty small map. And there's a reason for that, and that is because during my testing I created a relatively large map of Marathon, and it kind of looks like this. It's it's about 10 by 5 kilometers, maybe more. It's a big map, and you can tell how big it is by looking at the units that are on there. And what I found during testing is it was very slow, and not only was it very slow, but there were a number of bugs which actually stopped it from working altogether, in fact, and I had to iterate on that. So I looked at how I could make Ancient Armies faster, and it's been through several iterations of this already. But this one, this particular iteration, made a massive difference. I can show you that now, and I'll actually show you the games running. So this picture represents the CPU load when you're running the game. The first half is when it's loading. The second half is when you're running a typical turn. Red being the old version, yellow being the brand new optimized version that I've only just coded today. And as you can see, there's a massive difference. The difference in turn length from red to yellow is huge, and even in terms of the amount of processing time it's taken, it's a lot smaller. So I've made these massive optimizations. So I guess the big question is, how did I do it? And the way I did it is by approximation. Now, Ancient Armies and many other computer games for that matter, they store some pretty accurate data, and I mean really accurate, and the accuracy is so fine that no human would ever notice if it wasn't that accurate. So what I effectively did is I tweaked the algorithms so that they use approximations, and it's a dynamic calculation as well. It looks at what you're trying to do, dynamically calculates how approximate the approximation should be, and then runs the calculations. And because of that, we could vastly reduce the calculation time, as you can see here, simply because for the loss checks, which are these big bumps here, we're using bigger approximations. Now you might be crying out, but it's no longer accurate. Why have you done this? But the fact is that even with these approximations, it's still so damn accurate that no human would be able to tell the difference. It's just the nature of programming that the underlying data is super accurate, and it doesn't need to be that accurate. So hence the dynamic optimizations. So yeah, it works really well. So what I'll show you now what the original version looked like when it was trying to load the Marathon map, and you can see for yourself. So we go in, we pick the Marathon test. I'll leave everything on full command and control and everything else. Now what you'll find now, I'll hit the OK button, and notice how long it takes before the map appears, because that's quite important. Sorry, okay, that part is fairly standard, and you actually find, I guess, on the newer version, that part will take the same amount of time. Sorry, because loading the data from the map is always going to take the same amount of time. It's how you process the data, and that's what happens after I pick a unit. So if we play a Sir Crispin, now note the time between me hitting play a Sir Crispin and the map actually coming up. So there's quite a big delay, and not too much seems to be happening. My computer seems to be winding up, and here we go, and finally we're in. That took ages. So that was the first issue, that the fact it was taking ages for the map to load. Now the second issue that I noticed with maps is because Ancient Armies was never really coded to deal with such large maps as this. When I tried to zoom in, look how slow. You quite literally go for breakfast or lunch before you got to level zoom required in order to play your game. It just takes ages. So that's the second problem. So I needed to, I guess, make the zooms a lot more dynamic. And that's something I managed to do as well, again by dynamically calculating how fast the zoom should be, and I'll show you that later. But there were some other minor bugs, one of which was, if you look bottom left where my cursor is, you can see it says unit none, and the idea is when you wave your cursor over a unit, it tells you what the unit is, cavalry 1. Well, there's a bug that for hidden information, if I move my mouse cursor over something that I couldn't possibly know, if you look bottom left, it's now saying cavalry 1 green. So it's a bit of a cheat in that you can wave the mouse cursor over various units and see exactly what they are, so I had to address that. And even worse, I don't know if some of you folks know, but all the battles are recorded using Kronos, and in fact, even when you're playing the battle normally, it's Kronos that's playing it back. And what I noticed was Kronos was recording absolutely everything, including the state of the game prior to all the calculations happening. So that led to another bug where you could bring Kronos up, the replay functionality, go all the way to the first frame, and lo and behold, you got all the information of what's going on in the battlefield, which is perhaps not what you want, because that's a bit of a cheat as well. So that was a problem, and that had to be fixed. And of course, there were other issues that arose. For instance, when I waved my mouse over a unit, if you look top right, the highlighter wasn't showing text, and that's simply because of the way older optimizations worked in order to speed things up. But unfortunately, those optimizations weren't really geared towards the bigger map, which is why the units top right don't have any information. And then finally, the final issue is you send this unit down the map, and I hit play, and it just hung. So of course and then finally goes, but at this point it's not working. The game's pretty much crashed out, and that made me a little bit despondent, because you put all this time into coding things, and you hope that when you move your units to a bigger map, everything's just going to work as it should, but it doesn't. It had all these little issues. So I spent my time optimizing that, and what we'll do, we'll uninstall Ancient Armies, so you actually get to see the installer, which I don't think anybody's actually seen live, I guess. And that's here we go. That's that one there. And that's the other good thing with the development environment that I have, is the fact that I can build very specific versions of the game, and it saved my bacon today, because I'm running my build server on what's effectively a potato, and I needed an older version so I could show you guys how the old version worked. And it's great. I went straight into Team City, picked the version I wanted, it builds it, and away it went. So I could theoretically go all the way back to when everything was real 3D and publish that. So it's very powerful to have a dev environment that allows you to do that. Anyway, so if we go for the almost new version, so this is a version of Ancient Armies that I put together, where I fixed the zoom issue but didn't fix the optimization issue. So now if we run this version up, and what you'll find is all these timings are pretty similar. So pick Cavalry 1 again. So here we go, long wait, pain in the ass. Right, and we're finally in, but the zoom issue's been fixed. We've got that fixed, so that's nice and fast. But when we order one unit, and you have to bear in mind, although the map is big, the number of units here are actually relatively small. You're looking at what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on that side, and 8, 9, 10 on the other side. So it's not a very big battle at all, really. Look how long this takes to process the turn. And in fact, let's go bring up the task manager so you can see what's going on. Now don't worry, my computer is very powerful, but I tend to develop this primarily on a laptop, which is an i5 4-core thing, and that works very well on there as well. So don't worry about the fact that I'm running this on a beast. So when I hit play, take note of how long it takes before the action starts, and have a look at the CPU graphs. Here we go. Look at that, so it's taken ages, taking more time, and then we're finally off. And if you look at the CPU graphs here, you can see that it pretty much spiked out. Pretty big. So it's doing a lot of work. So I can imagine most people being miffed at having to wait that long for a turn to calculate, especially as all I'd done was move one single unit. And, you know, if it takes that long to calculate a turn for one unit, how long is it going to take for many units? So that's when I started looking at how to optimize it, and that's when I came up with the concept of dynamic making things not as accurate as they need to be. So if we actually run up the new version, the version that I made things very quick, and I'll show you how fast that is. So we load up the same map, hit OK, and load time is fairly similar, but note how long it takes between now me hitting play as Sir Crispin and the actual thing loading. Almost instantaneous. So they are really, really quick. Of course, we've got our zoom issue fixed. Other issues we got fixed. You can no longer wave. If you look bottom left now to the unit none, when we wave over enemy units, it's now question mark, so you can't steal information that way. Nor can you go to Kronos's replay functionality, get it to the first frame and see extra detail. That's been fixed as well. But more importantly, and this is I guess the primary reason of this post, is when I charge my singular unit across, look how long this takes. And we'll bring up the graph here so you can see what's going on. Let's run this, and again take note of the CPU graphs, and also take note of how long it takes to get going, and you'll find it's pretty fast. Look at that, straight away almost. And if you look at the graph, there's hardly any spike there at all. The computer barely broke into a sweat, so the optimizations I've made are huge. In fact, they're the biggest optimizations I've ever made to Ancient Armies, by far the biggest. So you might be thinking, so what? But the fact is, the game is now so fast that playing large battles on large maps like this is no longer a problem, even if your PC isn't that big. And this one is big, but I do run this, as I say, on a tiny i5 laptop, and it works great on there as well. So I guess that's it for this post. I just wanted to get across the outputs of the work that I've done since the last post. And normally I wouldn't post so quickly, but having that big a performance increase is a big thing. It is a really big thing, especially in a complex system like this. And the fact that I worked out how to achieve it and get that speed for no visual degradation in functionality, I think is quite a big milestone. And of course, we also, if we speed up time a bit, we've also, when you wave your mouse cursor, if you look bottom left now, you can actually see, so you still get your question marks because we don't know the name, but they're green question marks, so or it turns to black. So the bottom status bar is being fixed, as has when I wave my mouse over my units. I get the full details back. So all of the bugs that are present because I was running on a large map, they've gone. Performance is really fast, as you can tell, and running a turn really quick. So yeah, I think we're in a good position now, and I can now look at adding the new extra additional features I want to add. Anyway, thank you for watching, and goodbye.